Hi, Anahita. I hope you're doing well.
Hi, thank you so much. You too. I'm excited about this conversation.
Me too. We've been waiting for a few days now. And yeah, so thank you for joining me today in this conversation at the occasion of your Instagram residency with us. I want everybody to know that this conversation will be conducted in English, as you can see, as it's your preferred language, and subtitles are available in French below. So this week you've been sharing your work and thoughts about topics and ideas that matters a great deal to you and to us. You talked about notions of identity and memory, and especially in relation to experiences of displacement. And before I let you introduce yourself, I wanted to point out how important it is for us because we currently have an exhibition titled Unweave, Unveil, Kira Landscapes of Exile that is featuring the works of Patil Chilingwirian, who is Canado-Armenian, and Eugenia Resnik, who is Canado-Ukrainian. And they both collaborated on this exact same notion of uprootedness. So we felt that, having you come along and bring a response to this exhibition was kind of adding up to the conversation. I would also like to take the time to express how grateful we are here at L'Imagier and how I am to the people and the relationships that we are currently building on this land, whether it is with artists, with you, and with local communities as well. I'm talking to you from L'Imagier, which is located on unceded and unsurrounded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, and you're joining me from Montreal. Yes. So, as an institution, but also as individuals, we talk a lot, amongst us in the team, within the team. We want to contribute to the process of healing and reconciliation through open-mindedness and genuine and reciprocal relationships. And so I would add that this openness and commitment is not limited to indigenous communities. Of course, it also extends to those representing visible minorities, such as people of colors, African descendants, neurodiverse people as well, and LGBTQ plus communities. And so it is in that spirit that I want to recognize this shared connection and really insist on the importance of openness and care for each other. And having said that, I feel that we can begin this conversation now.
Sure.
Yes. So, Anahita, you originally come from Tehran and you moved to Montreal to pursue your studies. So, you've been traveling between Iran and Canada extensively. And that experience in itself must give you a unique perspective of the world that surrounds you. I'd like for you to introduce yourself first in your own words.
Yeah, sure. You're absolutely right about having a new perspective. I'm an Iranian artist, currently working and living in Montreal. I moved here to do my master's in photography at Concordia. After so many back and forth between Iran, I finally settled here in 2015, 16. To answer to your question, I think we get to have a better view over our surrounding from a distance. This distance can be physical, emotional, or psychological. Getting away from home has been so far the most challenging experience of my life. It's been incredible and extremely difficult at the same time, I would say. It has shaped me to what I'm today as a human and as an artist, has sort of stretched my understanding and my perception of the world. The reality of my position is interesting as an immigrant is that I belong to both of these two geographies and at the same time to neither. When I go back home, I'm considered as foreigner there as I am here. It's ironical because I still call it home, but it's not really my home anymore. I've been living here for a while now, and I visit Iran. I don't live there. But I think there is something irrational about the place where you come from. It always remains the place to return to, even when you live far away in a very long period of time.
Yeah. You present your practice as a pluridisciplinary one, with a focus on the plants that are actually native to the countries that were once colonized, such as Canada, for instance. I can add countries that are maybe still colonized. And as you would say it yourself, some plants are categorized as invasive in the West. On day 3 of your publications, for instance, you mentioned that this interest for plant life serves as a metaphor to address broader issues. So I'd like to talk about these broader issues. You talk about intolerance towards other species. I'd like for you to maybe expand further on this notion and share with us what brought you to look into plant exchange and into making these connections.
Sure. There is definitely so much to your question. To be more specific, I'm interested in the plants that are brought from the East to the West. When we look into history, these transfers have been always one way, whether it's a plant genome, a historical artifact, or the share of capital of globalization. And that's interesting to think why. One explanation is that these transfers and circulations have been in place only for the benefit of metropolitan countries in the West, meaning that the benefits of these transfers have been extremely unequally distributed between the East and the West, even though historically the East has been the exporter of the plant's genome or the historical artifacts, and the West the importer. Maybe it's important here that I mention, when I refer to the West, is to denote a specific grouping of the nation states that are located in the Western Europe and North America. It's in line with Edouard Glissant's statement, something along the line of l'Occident n'est pas à l'Ouest, n'est pas un lieu, c'est un projet. There is this acknowledgement that Western nations have historically worked together as a collective of industrialized countries to maintain a sort of hegemonic positions of power, wealth, and influence on the global stage. You also mentioned the similarities between the intolerance towards the overseas species and the ways that the newcomers are treated or perceived. For me, the question of how a plant being respected in the East can become known here in the West as an alien and invasive and unwanted weed was a point of departure for a 2-year-long research and a series of works. It was an investigation into the many ways that the plants gain meaning in the collective imagination, which seems awfully similar to geopolitical discourses and the rhetoric around human immigration sometimes, most of the time I would say. A sort of structural xenophobia and nationalism with problematic categories like foreign, native, and of course imbalance power dynamics.
Yeah. So we're kind of touching on the politics and the structures of powers here, and that brings me to my next question, which is, I mean, obviously this is a hot topic here in Canada and the rest of the world. I'm interested to know what your take is on the differentiation between, so what we say when we say native and foreign, because you do mention that in one of your publications. I'm curious about that language that we're using to describe what's the other, and how does that reflect itself in, like you said, structures of power.
Yeah, I find these words very problematic as they are racially coded, referring to some exotic others, and these exotic others can be humans or plants, as if plants have a sort of agency and act with aggressive or destructive intentions to take resources away from natives. I think we have a moral and ethical duty to question these categories and what they mean. Each category values some point of views and silence another. Thinking of the consequences, like the decisions, for example, made by immigration and naturalization services, they definitely have an impact on the world we live. The fact is, these species, they didn't happen to find themselves here by chance. They've been brought here intentionally and systematically for centuries for different reasons, economical, scientific, or simply ornamental. And as I said, it started during colonial era, and even today it continues, especially in the context of this capitalist world system and the circulation of goods and workers. They continue to move from a place to another, I would say, at an unprecedented rate. Yes, they come from somewhere else, and this displacement definitely has an impact on the new environment and the new ecosystem. But who is here to blame? If we continue blaming the plans and limiting our actions to only put more money into eradication programs, nothing will change. To truly protect our environment and effectively, we need to take the harder path and revisit the ways we treat nature in general, and radically rethink our view on how relating happens in the world. Is this a sort of relationship that one serves another, or it's a collaboration between the two, I mean humans and nature?
Yeah, it's quite interesting what you're saying. We could really bring some really hard questions here. And it's interesting as well because it's a perspective that brings new light on the current exhibition, where we also question where home is. We also question about the loss of the transmission of knowledge as well through the transfer of plants and plants traveling. There's a lot to unpack here. But, you mentioned in your first video that you like to work with situational objects and that your work stems from encounters. I'm very curious to understand what your approach is to this residency, because when I think about it, you work with the tangible, you work with materials, objects, you work with archives as well because you've done research. And I'm curious to know how you approach this residency, because it's done in a virtual space. And so it's non-physical. There's no location. It's a third room up there. It's at l'Imagier, but not really. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenging question maybe, but I'm kind of curious to know.
Yeah. Well, the experience was challenging. I never been into a virtual residency, so and when you're thinking about a residency, you think about the idea of like being in a new space, getting inspiration from that space, from the surrounding, from the environment, exchange with people. So it was a very different format, very new to me. But as you said, I'm very interested in different medium with in objects. I work a lot with them, and basically my practice is based on that. So it was interesting to kind of work with nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of materiality, but at the same time, I'm an artist who works with ideas and stories and poetry, and this residency was all about creating content. So it was really interesting for me to actually helping me to kind of put together all the thoughts that I had through the last 2 years. I have been working on different projects, interconnected but very different at the same time. So I had to reconceptualize all these three projects together and think about them as a whole to present it through this residency. So it was really interesting for me to actually, again, talking about the distance myself from these projects and look at them from outside and recap them in a different way. I have an exhibition that's coming up soon in September at the Art Gallery of Guelph. And I'm showing a project that I've been working on for the last year, thinking about the plans, my position as an immigrant, and all these plant transfers has helped me a lot also to kind of rework that project that was already done and being presented differently. So yeah, for sure, it was for me it was a really interesting project to do it this way. Very different, but interesting.
Yeah, what I like in this series is that every artist use this platform to kind of create their unique experience. And so sometimes it helps articulate, like you said, taking a distance and looking at your work, the big picture, and it helps you articulate your thought. It's a nice thing to let the artist kind of take over and use it the way he needs to. And that let go is, I think, is important to us from our side. So we're kind of slowly steering towards your creative process. I'm curious to know, the thought process behind the choice of medium for each series, because you work with photography, you work with glass objects or installations, currently with cyanotypes, which we're doing right now with kids at camp, and this is a really cool process. I'm a huge fan of photography and the whole, revealing process, so that speaks to me. But so I kind of want to know what attracts you to the medium more than another one, and how do you choose? When you think about a series, do you first think about the medium or vice versa? What's the process?
Yeah, my main material is always the ideas, the question that I have, the stories that I read, or poetry. And the choice of medium always comes secondary. But of course, this decision is always well thought and research. Each medium and material has an agency, art historically, socially, and politically. So I choose my medium for each project by considering all of that. My research phase is always the longest and the most fun part of the project for me. I really enjoy learning about my subject and creating these associations that seem impossible in the beginning, but when they start to make sense, then it's like magic. And that's when I start thinking about the medium and the materiality of the works. The question for me there is, what would communicate these ideas the best? And of course, this approach comes with a lot of technical challenges, as I'm always working with something that I don't know, and I don't know at all, and I have to learn about it. But I really enjoy this, and I love problem solving. So it's a constant process of learning something new, which is really fun.
Yeah, the glass flowers are stunning. I can't stop looking at the picture, how they hang and they're so fragile. And anyway, they're just beautiful. And I can see how challenging it must be to create an object like this one. I'm also intrigued by your AR application called Alien Blooms that you developed. Can you tell me a bit more about it? We did work last summer with an AR application, so that's why I'm asking. I'm curious.
Yeah. Yes, sure. This is an application that is free to download and doesn't collect any data from the viewers. I developed it for an exhibition at the Grantham Foundation for Art and Environment with the help of ADAX. This project is about giant hogweeds, a very invasive plant in Canada, which is native to Iran. I wanted to give a sort of embodiment to this psychological fear of a dangerous, gigantic other. The app basically foregrounds 3 giant hogweeds in their real size into a surrounding space by activating device camera. so the users can experience the piece. And it's also interactive, so when you approach the plants, when you get to certain proximity, the plant starts reacting to your presence. I really enjoyed working on it. It was really challenging because I didn't know much about the AR. I was working with an Ukrainian team of developers, and it was right before the war started, and we were working on it, and then the war started, and the project just fell into that time period, and I was really worried that I wouldn't be able to finish the project because it was meant to be shown in the gallery like a month after. But it was a whole experience in a different level, in a sense that the team of the developers, they were working full-time on this project while being bombarded in Kiev by Russian troops. So sometimes we would do some video chats, and I would see in the background window that there are like some missiles passing by.
Oh my God.
Her head, oh, there is an explosion. Okay, so we continue working, and I was like, how do you guys work? You know, it's so stressful. How come you are staying and working? And their idea was so beautiful. It's like, well, they are here to take away the life that we have. So by just committing to the life we have, you're kind of combating.
They were distanciating themselves from the reality. That's chilling. When we worked with AR, it was to feature works by 5 indigenous women artists. It was very interesting as well because the works were existing works, so physical works that were transcribed into an AR application. It was challenging for the artists because they had to rethink their work as a 3D object, well, on a phone, so a 3D object that would become a 2D object, an image. Mm-hmm. For visitors, it was challenging because there was something to see that wasn't there, to give something in order to get to access. It was a very interesting project as well. But if we come back to what we're talking about, I'm always curious to pin down, that moment when you knew that you were going to choose the life of an artist. Now that you've committed yourself to this path and quite successfully, what would you tell your old self, as an inspiring artist, or for any other inspiring artist that would hear you?
Well, I had my doubts, and I still do sometimes. So it's better that my current self also listen to what I'm saying now. I would say doubt less and work more. Don't take no's personal. And if you can't not take them personal, then transform them to a resistant force. And just keep moving forward, because if that's the path you chose, then you have no other option but to keep going.
Yeah.
One more piece of thought, and this one is for my older self, as my current one has learned it in a hard way. I would say be strategic about what you do and with whom you work. This is extremely important. We don't learn it in a school. This is very important for building a career, because art is all about community, and those you work with are very important in your growth as an artist. I don't mean being calculated, not at all. Being strategic means being methodical and tactful, having a destination in mind, and a well thought plan on how to get there. You will meet many people that you will work with. Choose them for real reasons.
Yeah. Wow, that is so much good advice. It's really yeah. I mean, treat your practice as a professional one, and it's not a hobby. I think art suffers a little bit from that judgment, I guess. So, like you said, be strategical about it. So you mentioned earlier that you had a few projects coming up. One in September. Do you want to share with us, what it is and with whom, and where can we go see your work in real?
Sure. Yeah, currently I'm working with Amin Al-Saden, a good friend, on a show that will be exhibited at the Art Gallery of Gulf in September 2023. I'm also developing a large body of work, which is the result of my recent residency at Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. The project is focused on the Persian artifacts in the museum collection that have been in the collection for many years but never been on display for different reasons, because they've been considered not perfect enough, or not having provenance, or missing a part. For this project, I'm focused in the idea of the absence of material or information for these diasporic objects that are out of their context. So it's kind of an extension to the project that I've been doing for the botanics, but this time I'm more focused in the archaeological artifacts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to say thank you to Amin as well, which we know too, and which with whom we're working as well, and on an upcoming exhibition. Yeah, I want to thank him for introducing us to each other, and when we talk about building these relationships, I guess that is a good example of
exactly
what we can do. So thank you, Anaïta, for taking the time to share with us your thoughts. I really enjoyed this moment. Every interview I always say how much I hope that this conversation can spark other interesting conversations around us.
Yeah, and I want to thank you both for creating this platform, this incredible platform for the artists to be able to share, to talk, to create conversations. I hope that there was more of that. And thanks for this great opportunity. I really enjoyed working with you, and I had fun thinking about all these contents. And the feedback was amazing. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. And until next time, continue to stay safe, stay curious, and of course, stay in touch.
Yeah, sure.
Bye.
Bye.